Hello and welcome to The Nation. You're with me, Elaine Noor Abdullah. And today we're talking about the topic, let's protect whistleblowers. Now, fraud and corruption in the public and private sectors can be detected through red flags, such as employees living beyond their means or from tip-offs from whistleblowers. Now, according to the global report to the Nations on Occupational Fraud and Abuse 2020 by the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, 43% of schemes in 2020 were detected through tip-offs, mostly from employees who had undergone fraud awareness training. So why are whistleblowing reports still low even after awareness training and campaigns by, say, for example, Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, MACC, offering incentives to public sector employees who report wrongdoings, and the enforcement of Section 25, Subsection 1 and Subsection 2 of the MACC Act 2009, requiring a public officer to report any attempt or promise of bribery by a third party. So today we speak to Raymond Ram, a certified fraud examiner, about protecting whistleblowers. Welcome and hello. Thank you for joining us in the studio. Now, this is, of course, I would call it a sensitive topic, but people are aware of whistleblowing, but there's still a very low amount of awareness for actually taking action on it. So let's start with the Whistleblowing Act. What does it cover and how does it really work, Raymond?
Thank you, Ling. Okay, when we talk about the Whistleblowing Protection Act or the WPA 2010, of course, it protects whistleblowers when it comes to confidentiality of the information that they share, and also protection against detriment against their own well-being, right? So both of that. But again, we have a lot of concerns when it comes to the WPA because it was passed very quickly during that time when it was tabled, and there are a few amendments that need to be made to the Act. Right, so I think before we go into that, we can also discuss how the Asian society as well, it's programmed such a way that we need to look more into what are the societal factors as well that governs the whole thing.
So those are some of the concerns with regards to the Act itself. But say, for example, if someone sees a wrongdoing and is compelled and wants to come forward and report and be a whistleblower, who in the first place do they go to? What can they do and where should they go? Is there a basic framework with regards to that?
Okay, when we look at our WPA 2010, right, they define law enforcement or enforcement agencies as 7 major agencies, right? Okay. These are the MACC, PDRM, your Securities Commission, BNM, Immigration Department or Customs, and this is 7 of this. Yep. And they need to go directly to all these agencies. Right. Okay. So that's actually a weakness because they cannot go to, there is no other authority they can go to. So if there's a trust deficit between them and these law enforcement agencies, they would not report at all. Right. So we do not have Suhakam, for example, the Human Rights Authority. They are not part of the law enforcement list within the WPA. And we do not have something like how the other OECD countries have these parliamentary ombudsman and whatnot, right? We do not have authorities like this that the people could go to. So that's one of the weaknesses that we see as well under the WPA.
So with regards to that question that I have, who, what, where and when do you go and create this report? An individual right now would now have to figure out who do I report to for a specific act which they might not know falls into whose jurisdiction, whether do I report it to the police, do I report it to customs. So this is where you're saying, you're highlighting that, there isn't a one-stop shop in that sense, where if you are reporting or complaining, you don't know who to go to because you might be, going back and forth and not getting to the right person to take action on it. So right now, how do we go forward? So for example, if someone wants to report and they see somebody, say for example, taking a bribe, what do they do?
You see, when we look at the private sector, right, the corporate sector, they have their own whistleblowing mechanism within the organization itself. Right. But the issue with this is the WPA does not cover internal reporting, those that report internally, right? They need to go directly straight to the enforcement authorities, right? So what happens if they complain within the organization and so happen the senior management is involved, right? And senior management do not take action for some reason. Can they now go back to the authorities? It's not clearly specified within our WPA 2010, right?
That all sounds very confusing right now. You're not sure what you're going to do.
Correct.
So how do we go about and how do we navigate this?
I mean, we need to make certain amendments to the Act itself, right? Like how we have done research when it comes to the other OECD countries, they have protection of internal whistleblowers as well. Internal, those that reports internally within the organization, they are also offered the same protections later on when they come out in the public, right? So we need to look into those areas. And also there's some other amendments that I would like to actually also suggest, which is under section 6 within WPA. It mentions also that reports made by whistleblowers should not be against any other written law. For example, they cannot report anything that goes under, for instance, OSA, Offshore Secrecy Act, or goes under any other acts like the Financial Services Act or whatnot. But we believe that misconduct is misconduct.
So right now, I just want to bring this conversation back here with regards to what is currently in place. The current WPA. How are these current situations or current laws affecting or challenging people like you to be able to conduct these kind of investigations?
You see, the thing is simple. The only time an investigation actually kicks off is either because there's a red flag, like you mentioned earlier, it's a red flag that's been detected by the auditors or by the compliance department, or it is a tip-off by a whistleblower. We can't encourage whistleblowers due to certain legal issues that I mentioned earlier, right? Whether they can trust the internal reporting system, and if they go to the internal reporting system, will action be taken? And if action is taken, will there be any reprisal against them, any detriment actions being taken against them? So all these factors comes to mind when a person wants to report, right? So more protection and more awareness needs to be given to this whole area.
Right, so we will take a short breather right now. When we come back, let's tackle the perception issue, because that seems to be a major stumbling block before we increase that kind of action and outcome that we will have more whistleblowers coming forward when they see something that's not right happening. We'll take a short break. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
Saya memutuskan sedang pagi ini hampir selang sehari dalam berkata di setiap hari siang malam untuk menentukan supaya kita dapat mencapai satu usaha yang boleh dikatakan berkesan. So saya nak ucapkan tahniah atas kejayaan Ustaz Sestian yang sanggup berkata lepas tugas bekerja siang malam menjadi frontliner yang telah berkorban banyak masa. So I just want to record my greatest respect and sincere thanks to all of you for doing what you have done for the country. Yang pertama Dr. Puas Hati, dia sedang merawat semua pesakit-pesakit tuan-tuan dan perempuan di sini dengan cara yang terbaik supaya tuan-tuan dan perempuan rakyat Malaysia boleh balik rumah macam biasa. Nak balik rumah tak? Nak balik rumah? Tak nak lah. Nak balik rumah? Saya fikir semua nak balik, tak ada sini bagus lah. Baik, kita doa dan kuat semangat dan jangan bimbang. Saya dah diberitahu Dr. Adham, Dr. Mungkin Besar pada sini, Datuk Siti kata semua adalah dijaga dengan keadaan yang terbaik. Bisa bagi rawatan, lepas ini pulang ke rumah dalam keadaan yang lebih sihat. Tapi kena jaga kesihatan sentiasa ikut SOP ya. Jangan lupa kita pakai pelitup muka, basuh tangan, cek suhu badan, alright? Makan ubat yang doktor bagi. Jadi saya ucapkan ini selamat dan mudah-mudahan akan cepat kembali ke rumah masing-masing. Take care, alright? Stay at home. Cepat terjadi. Terima kasih.
Hello and welcome back on The Nation. You're still with me, Elaine Abdullah, and in the studio and speaking to Raymond Ram, a certified fraud examiner. If you're wondering what that means, it means that he will be coming to examine and investigate if you raise a red flag. So, Raymond, let's talk about many whistleblowers. So some people have come forward, some people want to, but perhaps don't. So let's tackle this perception issue. Many whistleblowers are often stigmatized, seen as the traitor, the rat, the betrayer of whichever the company, their colleagues, the industry, the society as a whole, or their leader, you know. So it is tough to protect a whistleblower from this mindset, this stigma that would befall them. How can this perception challenge be tackled? What, in your opinion?
I mean, again, when we talk about social stigma, it comes from a very young age, right? So all of us have grown up in that sense where if we were part of a group and if we happen to tell the teacher or tell tales on someone else, right? So I mean, it starts from the beginning. It starts from schools itself, right? To teach you that you need to have some kind of altruistic belief where we need to think of the greater good, right? What is right, is wrong is wrong, right? So again, corporations, on the other hand, we have to look at the governance structure or the governance culture, the compliance culture within the organization itself. The tone at the top, the boss needs to set the example that they are against such things and they want whistleblowers to come forth, right? Loyalty, trust is not to the boss. It's not to certain things that's being done by senior management. It's to the greater good, right? To the whole organization itself, to the whole society.
Now, I have a question. In your experience of, in the course of duty, what compels someone to actually step forward? Because it needs a certain kind of character to be able to. What have you seen? A consistent sort of pattern of the people who have come forth despite, all these roadblocks, challenges, stigma that could potentially befall them?
Again, we have people who uphold integrity. I mean, we are not saying people are bad. I mean, we have people who uphold integrity. But again, a lot of times during my course of work, when we work with the corporate sector, we've seen a lot of this comes from disgruntled employees. Employees that leave the company because they're angry because of something, right? And then that's when, during exit interviews and whatever not, this is when they expose stuff, right? And look, this is what was happening. I know this colleague of mine was earning bonuses, doing sales, but not in the right manner and things like that. So we find that it's still, the social stigma and the structure is still not right, right? It's coming out in the wrong manner. It's coming out because people are angry, out of frustration, instead of them believing in honesty, in integrity, and doing the right thing, right?
So there's a lot of fear about their own livelihoods, about their own loss of jobs, with regards to taking these kind of very bold steps forward. Now, of course, it doesn't help that being Asian culture, the idea of gifting, about giving, it's a norm. So it blurs the line of what is permissible, what's acceptable, what's not, and who's to say what's wrong and what's right, and how to set that context. So how do companies measure the level of risk of bribery to ensure that business still continues and grows?
Again, there is, in my personal belief, there is no such thing as no gift policies within companies, because that's how businesses are run, right? So, and it depends on industry, it depends on your risk profile, the type of businesses that you have. We must understand that if we accept gifts or we go out for lavish dinners, whatever, right? Any gratification, it should not go above a certain limit, right? Certain threshold. Because I mean, if you're conducting business with a particular person and going out for a luxury dinner that they're giving you, or you're accepting a Rolex watch because of a certain project that's going to be awarded, I mean, we know that is wrong, right? To a sense, we need to understand what commensurate, what is acceptable and what is not, right? So that comes again, you doing a proper assessment of what your business is, and how do we look into your daily business conduct, daily operations, and how that comes together again.
I'm of the opinion that is probably within acceptable terms if you're in a private sector, but in the public sector there should be a very much a standard norm of what is and what is not acceptable, and therefore there's a benchmark set, and people who are working under those circumstances understand where the boundaries lay for what's acceptable. It's like, I think quite some time ago, Tun Mahathir himself said that flowers and
perishable
fruits,
you
can give them, that's fine, but nothing, let's just say a tangible Rolex watch, that's clearly beyond.
I mean, the idea is disclosure must be made at least, right? If a certain gift is given to you, for instance, if you're conducting an audit or going to a certain company and it's during Chinese New Year or during a certain festival,
a hamper,
an ang pao or something, those things need to be disclosed. It needs to be told to your head of department. Your department needs to understand what that you receive this, or you share it within your department colleagues and whatever not. It cannot be kept with you, kept as a secret and things like that. Yeah.
Now let's talk about the biggest elephant in the room, trust. You know, trust is a key issue of
Yes.
concern. What is the level of trust towards the authorities and enforcers to protect, investigate and enforce? So that is one of the stumbling blocks for people's mental attitude towards wanting to actually come forth. Now, government bodies, like you mentioned, those 7 agencies, the police, customs,
Yep.
immigration, MSCC, Securities Commission, company CCM, Companies Commission Malaysia, and also RTD, it's our Road Transport
Yep.
Department, are the 7 that you highlighted earlier, to which the public can lodge these reports. What, in your opinion, in terms of their course of duty, is the integrity index perception, and how does that affect the efficacy of, you know, this action going forward?
We have seen the corruption perception index rise we have done very well in the corruption perception index in the past year.
Right.
Of course, the next year's one is coming very soon.
Right.
And the MECC is doing very well actually
Yes.
with the way they are.
I agree.
They are actually exposing what they are doing.
Yep.
Before this, they were not having much of social media presence.
Yep.
But social media presence now showing what they're doing, the type of people they are bringing in and things like that. Those are things where people see and they start believe that enforcement officers are doing their duties,
Yep.
taking action.
Yep.
So when we see the authorities taking action, that's where we have trust.
Right.
That's where we believe that they are there for us, right?
So they are setting the benchmark, they are taking
Yes.
the lead, they are creating that perception. I truly believe that in the past 1 to 2 years alone, MSCC has taken leaps and strides
Yep.
in terms of communicating
Correct.
their methods and the action and enforcement that has been taken.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of agencies can follow
Also
suit.
beef up that same thing, yeah.
And follow suit and learn from those actions. We will take another short breather, but when we come back, let's tackle the difficult question of what's next. How do we progress? Because it's very easy for us to complain about it,
Yeah.
you know, being an issue. But what are the options available to us individually as citizens, as
Yeah.
well as if we are part of an organization? How do we conduct ourselves? We'll come back to that shortly. We'll take a short break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Tiada jalan mudah untuk berjaya dan tiada jalan mudah untuk bahagia. Jadi buang tabiat tidak baik untuk berjaya dan bahagia. Buang perangai kita yang ingin mengambil hati orang. Buang gaya hidup buruk yang tak sihat.
Kebahagiaan ialah ketenangan yang kita rasa, bukan terletak kepada kemewahan yang kita ada. Bagi orang yang belum berkahwin, bahagia dalam maksud dia ialah bila dia berkahwin. Bagi orang yang dah berkahwin, barangkali bahagia bagi dia ialah bila dia berkahwin lagi. Bagi dia bila dia dapat anak. Contohnya tak balik rumah saya nanti. Jangan lupa saksikan Refleksi Minda hari Sabtu 10.30 pagi di saluran 502 Bernama TV.
Hi, thanks for staying with us on The Nation. You're with me, Elaine Noor Abdullah. We're speaking to Raymond Ram and we're talking about whistleblowing. He's, of course, a certified fraud examiner. Raymond, we talk about whistleblowing and we have expectations that people will step up to do the right thing. But it's not as easy as it sounds. A lot of people face this situation. They're in this situation. They're sort of like not sure. What should I do? I see that something is not right. But there's also a typical culture or mindset that prevents people from coming forward saying that it's not my problem. I shouldn't get involved, and I should leave it be as long as it doesn't involve me in the process. So these are some of the current issues. So as we progress, we want to move forward. How do we move forward from here? What's next? What needs to change? And what does that vision of progress look like from where you sit and from the current reality? Because there's a gap between what is reality and what we hope in terms of optimistically, ideally looks like. So how do we move from here? Where do we change? How do we create that?
In my personal opinion, I believe that we need to look at first the legal side of things. Right, I mentioned earlier the amendments to the act needs to be done, and number two, the cultural beliefs of what a whistleblower is, and that also comes along with the awareness. Like many do not know where to complain or what to do. Right, even sitting in some civil societies, we have people coming out and telling us where do we go. Right, what's next. Right, so the awareness is key. Right, awareness is key, and education. We need the law enforcement side to beef up education. Right, to increase the awareness on what can be done and why it needs to be done. right? If you come out and whistleblow, how would it benefit the society at large? We can't start incentivizing everyone, that's for sure, because again, that wouldn't be the right way, right? Because we are pushing for a nation that upholds integrity instead of looking to incentivizing them. So yeah, the awareness and making sure that we create that altruistic kind of belief that it's for the greater good, and we know things like corruption, whatever not, destroys the nation as a whole. It's not one individual that's not going to be involved or going to be involved later and whatever not. So it's of course, we need to change the whole perception and look into, again, the legal, the cultural factors, and the awareness of the people.
So the question is, who's taking the lead on this?
Yeah, who's taking the lead on this? Again, I mean, individual enforcement agencies look into different aspects, right? You talk about, like I mentioned, the 7 earlier, the MACC looks into corrupt practices. Then we have the PDRM that looks into the acts in the penal code and whatever not. So again, different enforcement agencies can take their own step forward. The BNM can come forward, for example. Even Bank Malaysia can come forward and say, look, if there's certain scams you think that's taking place or whatever not, financial institutions playing around and whatnot, then you need to come forward. Right? Even the MACC is already doing that. The PDRM can start doing that. So give them a proper channel, proper accessible channel to all. Right?
So what is the suggestion? Do we then moot for a single body that's, if you're looking at, because there is an act called the Whistleblower Protection Act. So should there be a whistleblower department that you can go through and they can rechannel you to, say for example, this is an MACC purview, this is under PDRM, so that people don't have to figure out who they're supposed to contact or supposed to complain to, because that's one of the most frustrating things. It's already hard enough to step up the courage to say that I want to report. Then you go through all that hurdles and you say, this is not worth it, it's just a waste of my time, nobody's going to listen to me. So what is the suggestion? Is it to create that one center or one call hotline? I don't know.
If you look at our WPA 2010 now, we cannot do that, because you cannot whistleblow to someone else before going to the relevant law enforcement agency. So you're telling, if you create a center and that person goes to the center and say, I got this problem, I know about this, he automatically loses the whole protection. He needs to go directly to the agency. Again, the Act does not
So in order for that to happen, say for example a one-stop shop, the legal framework needs to allow for that to happen, so that the protection continues.
Because even now, even internal reporting is not protected now. Even you're reporting within the organization and later on you go to the law enforcement agency, you might not get protection.
Because you've already told someone within your internal circle. So that creates a quandary. So what does that mean for an internal person who sees a wrongdoing? Do they then just go directly to the external agencies for because it has protection, or do they still go through the internal processes?
Again, it depends on the case, and actually it depends on the organizations, the way they have structured the whistleblowing mechanism, whether they have created that trust mechanism, whether they have created that trust within the employees that if they know that if I come forth, actions will be taken and no reprisal or no kind of detrimental action will be taken against me. If they cannot create such culture within the organization, then it's best for the employee to go directly to the enforcement agencies.
In order for them to have some kind of safeguards. Now, what are some examples we can learn from, success stories that perhaps you can emulate and learn from?
I mean, we have done a lot of research with the OECD countries, right? So we are part of the OECD countries as well. I mean, looking at even the Netherlands and whatnot, they protect internal reporting policies. I mean, for example, I mean, they protect those that have reported internally. They actually give them the similar protection when they come forth later. Because many times, in many cases, even in the US and the UK and whatnot, a lot of cases where internal whistleblowers has been reprimanded against or has been taken as a telltale and whatnot, and basically taken action against instead of them taking action for the whole whistleblowing thing.
Instead of actually affording them the protection that's necessary under, their intentions is to create a better outcome. So now, any parting messages for our viewers? I know it's been very confusing with regards to talking about this, but where do we go from here?
I mean, my belief is simple. Like I mentioned earlier, the two ways that we can stop or we can detect any corrupt activities or fraudulent conduct or even any improper misconduct is, again, red flags and tip-offs. And we have seen time and time again, tip-offs is one of the highest, the rate of detection comes the most from tip-offs, right? So people need to come forth and they need to start whistleblowing, start giving the information, the vital information that enforcement agencies need in order to push forward, in order to create a better society at large.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Raymond, for sharing that with us. Now, the Whistleblower Protection Act 2010 provides protection to whistleblowers who voluntarily come forward to report or reveal information on corrupt activities. Now, this act also encourages the public from all sectors to disclose corruption-related activities. The identity of the whistleblower and the information provided are kept confidential from any party. The whistleblowers are also given immunity from any civil, criminal, or disciplinary action due to the revealing of the act of corruption. Now, the Whistleblower Protection Act 2010 is a law of Malaysia to combat corruption and other wrongdoing by encouraging and facilitating disclosures of improper conduct in the public and private sector to protect persons making those disclosures from detrimental action, to provide for the matter disclosed to be investigated and dealt with, and to provide for the remedies connected therewith. So let's get better educated. Let's stand up for what needs to be done. Thanks for joining us on this session of The Nation. I'm Elaine Abdullah, signing off. Bye.